I'm 32 years old now, and I work as an IT analyst for a mid-sized logistics company. I'm the kind of person who likes routines, lists, predictable outcomes. I rent a small apartment, drink the same brand of coffee every morning, and I don't believe in ghosts or conspiracies. I've always thought fear comes from people, not from shadows. This happened 3 years ago when I was 29, shortly after my grandmother passed away. She lived in a quiet town about 4 hours from where I live now. I hadn't been particularly close to her in my adult life, but she was a constant presence growing up. Sunday lunches, stiff hugs, that faint smell of mothballs and lavender. When she died, my father asked me to help sort through her house. Most of my relatives lived nearby and had already taken what they wanted. I was the responsible one, apparently. I took a week off work and drove down on a Wednesday. The town hadn't changed much. Same gas station, same bakery with the faded awning. Her house sat at the end of a narrow street lined with overgrown hedges. It was late afternoon when I arrived, the sun low and orange, making everything look softer than it really was. At that point, it felt like a chore. Sad, yes, but ordinary. I expected dust, old photos, maybe a few uncomfortable memories. Nothing about that day suggested it would be the start of the most unsettling experience of my life. The first 2 days passed quietly. I slept in my grandmother's old guest room, the mattress creaking every time I shifted. Mornings were spent sorting paperwork at the dining table, afternoons boxing clothes and knickknacks. I played the radio softly, just to fill the silence. Neighbors stopped by once or twice to offer condolences. One woman brought a pie, another asked if the house would be sold. Everything felt painfully normal. On Friday, my father called to check in. "Find anything interesting?" he asked, half joking. "Just bills and old photos," I said. "Mostly boring." "Good," he replied, a little too quickly. I didn't think much of it. That evening, I went out for groceries. The local market was nearly empty, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. The cashier recognized my last name and mentioned my grandmother had been a complicated woman. She smiled when she said it, like it was a harmless joke. I smiled back. After dinner, I decided to tackle the last untouched area of the house, a small storage room off the hallway. It had always been locked when I was a kid. My grandmother used to say it was just junk. The key was taped inside a kitchen drawer, labeled neatly in her handwriting. I remember hesitating before unlocking the door, not out of fear, just a strange sense of intruding. Then I told myself I was being dramatic. I turned the key, flicked on the light, and stepped inside. The room was narrow and colder than the rest of the house. Metal shelves lined the walls, stacked with boxes and folders. The air smelled stale, like paper that hadn't been touched in decades. At first, it was exactly what I expected. Tax records, old appliance manuals, photo albums. I relaxed and started sorting. Then I found a box labeled with my father's name. That wasn't strange by itself, but the dates were. The documents inside were from years before I was born. Medical records, court papers, letters written in careful, unfamiliar handwriting. I skimmed one letter, then another. They mentioned a custody arrangement and a non-disclosure agreement. My father's name appeared over and over, but so did another man's name. One I didn't recognize. I told myself there was probably a reasonable explanation, maybe a business dispute, maybe a mistake. What unsettled me was the way the letters were organized, each one numbered like evidence, and the tone, formal, tense, full of phrases like "for your protection," and "this must never be discussed." I was deep in thought when I heard a noise behind me. Just a soft sound, like someone shifting their weight in the hallway. I froze, listening. The house was supposed to be empty. After a few seconds, I heard the old floorboards creak again, then nothing. I stepped out of the storage room and checked the front door. Locked. The back door, too. I laughed quietly at myself. Old houses make noise. Stress does strange things. Still, I didn't go back into that room that night. I locked the door and slept with my phone on the nightstand, something I hadn't done all week. The next morning, the storage room door was open. I knew I'd locked it. I stood there staring at it, keys cold in my hand, trying to reconstruct the night before. Maybe I hadn't turned the lock fully. Maybe the latch was loose. Inside, the box with my father's name was no longer on the shelf. I searched the room, then the rest of the house. Nothing. It was just gone. I called my father. He answered on the third ring. "Did you come by the house last night?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "What?" "No," he said. "Why would I? Something's missing." There was a pause. "What exactly?" "Documents with your name on them." Another pause, longer this time. "You shouldn't be going through that stuff," he said finally. His voice was tight. "I'm cleaning the house. That's the point. Just leave it alone," he snapped, then immediately softened his tone. "Please." That afternoon, I noticed a car parked across the street. Dark sedan, engine off. I didn't recognize it. When I stepped outside to take out trash, the car pulled away slowly. An hour later, it was back. I told myself it was coincidence, small town, limited parking. But that night, I heard the storage room door creak again. I didn't open my bedroom door. I sat on the bed, heart pounding, listening to footsteps that were careful, deliberate, unfamiliar. By the time I gathered the courage to check, the house was silent. The door was closed, locked. Inside, more boxes were missing. I didn't sleep that night. At dawn, I packed my bag and decided I was leaving. Whatever this was, it wasn't worth my sanity. As I carried my suitcase to the car, the dark sedan rolled up and stopped beside me. The driver's window lowered. The man inside was older, maybe late 50s, neatly dressed, calm in a way that made my skin crawl. "You shouldn't take anything from that house," he said. I didn't answer. I stood there, keys clenched in my fist. He smiled faintly. "Your grandmother was very careful. She wanted certain things to stay where they were." "Who are you?" I asked. "A family matter," he replied. "One that doesn't involve you." "That's not your decision." His smile disappeared. "It absolutely is." For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he leaned closer. "Your father doesn't know the full truth," he said quietly, "and neither should you." My phone buzzed in my pocket. The sound broke whatever spell I was under. I stepped back, turned, and got into my car. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped the keys twice. In the rearview mirror, I saw him step out of the sedan, watching me as I drove away. I didn't stop until I reached the highway. I went straight to the police station in my city and filed a report. They took notes, nodded, asked if anything was stolen. Without proof, without a name, there wasn't much they could do. When I called my father again, he sounded exhausted. "You don't need to dig into this," he said. "Some things are better left buried." We didn't speak for months after that. The house was sold through an attorney. I never went back. The storage room contents were listed as missing prior to inventory. For a long time, I jumped at every unexpected sound. I checked my locks obsessively. Any unfamiliar car made my chest tighten. What bothered me most wasn't the fear. It was the certainty that someone had been watching me, carefully, quietly, long before I ever noticed. Last year, I received an envelope with no return address. Inside was a single photocopied document, a birth certificate. My father's name was listed under father. The mother line was blank. I still don't know who that man was. I don't know what my grandmother protected all those years. But sometimes, when I drive past older houses late at night, I catch myself wondering how many secrets are locked away, and how many people are still making sure they stay that way.